It is very, very healthy to have conversations, especially us as Africans. As much as many people show love and support for Ibrahim Traore, and I'm definitely one of them who support him. But it is great that some people question this narrative that he is a great leader. Here are some of the thoughts that I saw on a podcast from South Africa, which I would love to challenge. Nothing against the people who said what they said. It is how they understand and to their knowledge.
What we see on TikTok, what we see on YouTube is not reality. The reality is that you've got millions of women and children who are displaced in Burkina Faso. There's no water, there's no electricity.
But the first point, obviously, if you want to speak about the development of a country, to say, okay, this leader has taken over power for this much time, how much did they actually change the country? You rather, one, go to that country, or second of all, put a little bit of an effort to look at the people who have visited there. I mean, so many people have gone out there and taken videos. You can look at that and make your decisions and make your commentary based on that. You can't just make a claim that Burkina Faso is still poor. Yes, we know it is still poor. Of course, it's going to take a while for everything to be rebuilt. In as much as anybody will come up with how much aggressive force to try and rebuild their country, it's not going to happen over time, okay? It's going to take time. What you need to look at is, where was it when this person came to power and how far have we gone? Which you should either go there or take a look at those who are documenting the journey and the improvements that are happening in the country. And again, she's making a claim that there are so many people who have been displaced, and 40% of the country is still under terrorist rule. Of course, if you really, really paid attention to who Ibrahim Traoré is, you would know, yes, those who follow Ibrahim Traoré knows that a significant portion of Burkina Faso is still under terrorist rule. If you knew anything about him, he himself was in that region fighting the terrorists. When he decided to go back to the capital to take over the country, he was from that region fighting that terrorist. So it's not like he doesn't know it. He knows it, and that's exactly why he even got upset with the government. So I don't understand why you people would want to paint it on Ibrahim Traoré and say, oh, a huge portion of the country is still under terrorists. Of course, we all know it, and we're not expecting that it should be changed over time or overnight just because Ibrahim Traoré is in power. Once again, war is complex. It's not easy. It's not overnight. You can't just do these things overnight. It takes time and it takes a while. And when we understand, those who follow and pay attention to what's going on, we understand that he is putting enough effort to be able to change the situation so that he can liberate that region.
And the question for me, which is pertinent, and many of us are not asking this question, what is happening to the minerals in Burkina Faso? Where are the minerals of Burkina Faso ending at? The reality is that in the past couple of years, Russia and China in particular have been exploiting Burkina Faso. That's why it's not a coincidence to see Traore in Russia.
And again, the same typical Langley question, where is Burkina Faso's minerals going? You need to also pay attention, and you need also to do enough research. You also need to put an effort and try visit there and have a look at what's going on the ground. Himself, Ibrahim Traoré, answered this question about, and if you look at the nationalization of the gold mines and everything, it did not happen long time ago. It's been a process of removing French mining companies and American companies, and obviously nationalizing some of those mines and taking charge of those mines. And comes the question of mineral rights. Okay, why take them away from the French and the Americans and give them to Russia or China? At the end of the day, for you to be able to extract those minerals from the ground, you need the capacity and the capability. You need the machinery to be able to do so. Unfortunately, this is a sad reality. Yes, as Africans, we need to wake up. These are things that we should be able to do ourselves. But if you don't know how to do that, if you don't have the capability of doing that, unfortunately, you're going to need a partner. But at the end of the day, what's important now is, why chase away these Westerners and get Russia or China to mine? The different conditions, the different deals, the different respect of sovereignty that comes with that. You can have as many minerals as you want, but if you don't know how, if you don't have the capability to extract them off the ground, then they are pointless. Then you don't have anything. So obviously you need a partner to help you in this. That's why they bring in Russia. That's why they bring in China. Of course, we need to scrutinize these partnerships that we get into, because at the end of the day, it's also national interest. From there for them, it's what they can get out of Africa. But at the end of the day, we also have to consider. You look at the conditions, I mean, the percentages and the fractions of the benefits that African countries were getting from these Western countries. Come on, man. We are talking about 1% or less from whatever is extracted, the value of the minerals extracted from the ground. So it's clear as day why any country who with a revolutionary leader will say no to this nonsense. This mining rights also ties to weapons, and the conversation of weapons that came into in this conversation as well. No African country makes guns. There's no country in Africa which makes weapons. Okay, at the end of the day, you need, for you to be able to fight those jihad extremists, you need weapons, and also to protect your own country, to protect your own sovereignty. Yes, we should be thriving and striving to make our own weapons so that we can have control of everything. But until then, no country in Africa makes weapons. So now what? Are you gonna just sit and have nothing to be able to protect yourself and to be able to go fight those terrorists? No, of course you're gonna need a partner. He made it clear what kind of weapons deals that France was giving them compared to what Russia or China would give to them. Yes, you would go to the favorable deal. Until we can make our own weapons, they need weapons. And the conversation comes in, why Africans don't trade with each other, why he didn't take those mineral rights and give them to another African country. Come on. No African country has the capability and the capacity to mine either. So what's the point? You need to get a partner who will give you the support and the help that you need.
Muammar Gaddafi was killed. Thomas Sankara was killed. You've had many other guys here. We've had Abu Krisani, Steve Biko, etc. It was weird for me watching Traore take over and how he's being celebrated and nothing's happening. I'm like, this is not normal. So I've already got question marks. And the way my brain works is to ask, who's protecting him? Because I know it's not the African Union. The African Union doesn't protect its own. We would have avenged Gaddafi's death. We would have defended Robert Mugabe and the likes, but it's never been done. Then you start wondering, because at a time when I was visiting Russia, some of the soldiers from Burkina Faso and Traore was there at the same time. You know what I mean? Then when this thing came out that he went to visit Russia and they've just signed over some of the mines, I was like, this is a done deal.
Another outrageous statement by Penwell. He said Thomas Sankara has been murdered, Gaddafi has been murdered. Why hasn't Ibrahim Traoré been assassinated? Who is protecting him? Well, first of all, that's a ridiculous statement to make. And also, what you're trying to say is, if he is doing the right thing, you should have been assassinated a long time ago. What's the point? What does that actually mean? And also, if you were following and paying attention before you speak on a matter, even ChatGPT will tell you how many assassinations attempts on his life, more than 18 at this point. They are trying, but obviously, as many people are saying, he has learned the lessons. He is trying his own best to keep himself safe within his region and where he travels and where he goes. If you look at when he traveled to Russia, Vladimir Putin had to send a Russian plane with Russian military to protect him so that he can come to Russia safely. He's trying as best as possible to be safe. So it's not necessarily because somebody else is protecting. Yes, there could be Russian intelligence involved here to protect him, but of course, he is also trying his level best. He's always in the military fatigue. He's not just to look cool. He's also protecting himself. Even when he greets many people, he doesn't touch hands. He bumps with fist bumps with a glove because he's make sure he doesn't get poisoned. He's staying as safe as possible. So it's such a ridiculous statement to make. But anyway,
what is also interesting to me is that Burkina Faso recently Traore recently went to meet Putin in Russia. But where is Putin going to? Putin is having engagements with Trump.
That is true.
So
they have a decent relationship.
Oh yes, they have a decent relationship. Whilst The very Russia and the very China are saying abandon the West. They have close relationships with the West. They trade with the West. But then why do we need to abandon the West so that someone can come in? Why do we think that Putin has got interest? Better interest than Trump, than all leaders? They don't look like us. That's why when he's in trouble with the entire Western Europe, he runs to people who look like him. He runs to Donald Trump. He doesn't come to Africa.
And talking about why Putin is encouraging us to detach from the West, while he himself he have a dilly-dallying relationship with America, or if Putin is in trouble, runs to the West. That's fucking asinine. That's ridiculous. That's pure ignorance. I don't know which world this woman is living in. No disrespect to her, but on this matter, she's completely wrong. There's nobody else who will support this claim that there is no sweet relationship between Russia and America. America is literally supporting the enemy of Russia to fight Russia in Ukraine. There's no dilly-dallying relationship. Yes, they can be able to communicate between Putin and Trump, but there's no sweet relationships or any protection, or if Putin is in trouble, he runs to the West. That's crazy. That's out of this world. In any NATO summit, they are only discussing Russia all the time. So there's literally very, very strong enmity between Russia and NATO, which is the West, the collective West. This is a claim that nobody has ever heard of. If anything, Putin goes to North Korea, you can see the North Korean soldiers are actually helping with the fight in Ukraine, and also goes to China. Those are the people that they fall on. Iran. Those are the people that Putin runs to, not the West. When he literally means we must detach from the West, he means it, because he knows that the imperial nature and the imperial attitude of the Western countries towards people of color, brown people, and everybody from the global south. Another claim was about Wagner being the ones pushing the narrative that Ibrahim Traoré is this great leader and this amazing leader. Well, this is an unwarranted claim. There's there's no evidence or whatsoever of saying this. In more than anything, it's just people creating content. I mean, there's a lot of unemployed young Africans who are jumping on this bandwagon and just spreading that information. They are probably not Wagners at all. They are just fucking human beings. That Africans are just creating content.
With Zimbabwe in particular, Zimbabwe is no different to Burkina Faso. How Zimbabwe got to be where it is, it was people who were saying that Robert Mugabe must get rid of the British, because Robert Mugabe was also a strong man. He decided to get rid of the British, and Zimbabwe is where it is today because of the decisions that were taken by Robert Mugabe. Now, if we are we are proud of Traore, and we are saying that Traore must continue with what he has started. What happens when he fails? What happens if he's assassinated? What happens to the people of Burkina Faso?
Yeah.
Are we prepared to accommodate them here?
We won't.
Because a revolution is no child's play. You can just go on your phone and, of course, become a revolutionary.
Of course, like Upenzo on social media, Babas. I'm an activist.
But the reality is that decisions that leaders take have consequences. As Zimbabwe today, 40 years ago was thriving. There was no need for Zimbabweans to come to South Africa. In fact, Zimbabwe at some point was called the basket, the bread basket case of South Africa, of Africa.
You're right.
Yes, and the very decisions or the similar policies that Mugabe took, they led to Zimbabwe where Zimbabwe is today. And I'm not saying they were right or they were wrong, but I'm saying what we are praising today is exactly what Mugabe did. And where is Zimbabwe today?
Another topic which came here is about Zimbabwe. Okay, I am born Zimbabwean. I have Zimbabwean blood flowing in my veins. Okay, look, the narrative that they are trying to paint here is, oh, you made a mistake. Okay, Robert Mugabe, the decisions that were made, the main thing, the main decision that she's pointing to that was the biggest and the worst of all the decisions is to chase away the British colonialists out and then take over the country or take over the land. Same narrative that we have had over and over again. Okay, Zimbabweans have chased the white people and they are following them to South Africa to look for jobs. Okay, so what this implies or what this means is we should be cool, we should be fine, we should keep the white people. They can generate wealth for themselves and then we can at least get the benefit of having jobs. That is a very poor kind of thinking, and that mindset is rubbish, and we will never develop as Africans if we ever think that way. But second of all, the honest truth is not necessarily just the fact that you chased away the decision to chase away the British. Of course, the British must be chased away. They don't belong to Zimbabwe. They belong to Britain. I mean, you have already said they are British. What we are supposed to be talking about is the failures of the government that took over. It's not necessarily the decision to chase away the British. That was a very correct decision. That decision we stand by. But the problem is the people who took over that. They obviously did not know how to run the country, did not know how to maintain those farms, did not know how to redistribute those farms. They distributed amongst themselves for their own personal gains. And all the corruption that comes with it, everything, that the ruins that they have caused. It's not necessarily that one decision of chasing away the British. No, it's that doesn't have that has a little bit of a significance if you then fail to govern your country or to develop your own country. Then it cannot be an excuse either, because we cannot like you cannot depend on other people developing your own land so that you can benefit from it. That is out of the question. The mistake that was made is not to chase the British. The mistake that was made is poor governance, is how corruption was allowed to go on, is the mismanagement of the economy. That is the problem.